Okay, so for the most part, her face at this point is dry and looks a little rocky, but I've laid in a couple of the darker shadows that she has, except for on her lips, which I will do. But I do know just from previous portraits that it's hard to kind of recognize where you're at in terms of like the dark light balance if you don't have your one of your stronger darks in place. Well, I wouldn't want to put her eyebrows in or some of those smaller details because they'd be really difficult to paint like this darker shadow that I'm going to need in my painting. So what I'm going to do is start painting in some of her hair just so that I have a dark framer for moving forward into the portrait itself. So she has a really dark brown hair, and I am looking now at my browns that I could make out of my complementary colors and looking for the one that gives me like the deepest dark like brown. And so right away I see that my orange and blue make, and either orange or blue combination both make a really dark brown. The red and green don't get quite dark enough, like they stay in the distinctly in the reddish brown phase, but we do get a really nice like kind of a rich dark brown out of some purple and yellow. And so I am going to use that color combination, that dark purple and yellow color combination, to make her dark brown hair. I wouldn't want to just use the black simply because just the black will tend to turn blue. There's a lot of blue in black paint, and so I just do know from painting that I'm going to end up with a really blue hair if I use the dark black instead of a color that I mix up myself. I will probably have to add black to it just to like get the final color in place. But for right now, I have mixed up that purple and yellow, and I'm going to just lay in this darkest of the shadow in her hair. So you'll see that it isn't a super, super dark color. It's much darker than her face, which is what's going to help me kind of paint her face. And I'll even show you that I pull some of this color out of the hair to do some of the shadows along the side of her face. This, oh, I lost like the edge over here. So just like when I was painting before, I do have her portrait pulled up next to me on the screen so that I can kind of watch what I'm doing. So I'm not just painting blind. I'm not just doing this out of my head, out of my brain. Want to make sure that I'm looking at my reference photo. It's definitely going to be the way that I'm going to get the best possible painting. I just mixed up a little bit more, and I can see that this batch is a little darker, which is fine. Her hand is in the dark here. And right now, like, it's a very rough block in. I'm not concerned with details. You can see where the purple and the yellow are splitting apart from each other a little bit. That will all end up definitely fixed in the painting phase, the continued painting phase. So I'm absolutely not worried about that right now. This is 100% me trying to lay in some shadows around the face that will balance out the shadows that I need to paint as a part of the face. I can see right away that like what I thought was probably dark enough underneath here is definitely not going to be. And so that's kind of a nice thing to know too, is that I can make this darker still down here around her hand, and that it will need to be darker, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. So this looks crazy town right now, like every portrait always. The beginning phases of a portrait are always the worst because things look so strange. So I'm just gonna pull some of this shadow color out, refine this a little bit. Some of that dark shadow is going to need to be on the side of her face too, but I'm just kind of bumping some of this around. And this will definitely need to be darker because she's got this definite dark, she's got like a little curl of her hair. But it is giving me like kind of the sensation that I wanted, that I needed, so that I understand how dark I can go now in the portrait itself, because I've got it balanced out against some of this stronger dark along the edge of her face. This will definitely have to be painted again, so it will not be dark enough. This is actually a really great color for the rest of her hair. And like I said, that is the yellow, and I mixed a purple. So I can go ahead and start pulling some of that out if I want, because it's going to be lighter for the highlight of her hair. So if we think portrait back to front, big to small, you know, the hair is definitely a section that is quite large. And you want to think about it in terms of chunks instead of in terms of tiny details. You can, with caution, use some paintbrush handle, as I'm doing right now. Minimal, I would say. Like, don't get too crazy with that, because it doesn't go away if you decide you don't like it. And you'll also see too, like this, her hair is going to end up being a little bit different color than probably in real life, which is fine. And actually it's going to be, that's part of making a painting sometimes, is that you end up making things a little bit more interesting color than they are in the real world. This side of her head actually just totally cuts off. I kind of made this up over here. I have no idea. But you can see that that helped me to be able to recognize that I'm going to need to go darker on her actual face. Again, like before, this is going to be in a spot where it needs to sit up, needs to dry. I can't keep working on it forever. It's going to need to take a break. And so I am going to take a break, and we will come back to this when it's dry. Big to small, back to front. Remember that you'll need to balance darks at some point, which is what I'm doing here right now, in order to be able to kind of see what you're doing on the face itself. Happy painting!